All right, everybody, welcome to episode number 1 of the RPMC podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Cosner, alongside Mike Latito and PJ Sioka.
What's going on?
We're going to mainly be a variety podcast, but today we're just going to focus on sports a little bit. And the first topic that I know we want to get into is the NFL. And big news that just happened today, actually, the acquisition of Des Bryant to the Saints. PJ, you want to start us off a little bit and talk about it?
Yes, so officially 2 hours ago, Des Bryant is now a member of the New Orleans Saints. There's no salary cap, it is a one-year deal. There's no salary cap announced yet, but the deal will be signed tomorrow. And as of tomorrow, coming probably not into this weekend, he probably won't play on Sunday just because he's been out for so long. But starting next weekend, he will be with the New Orleans Saints.
Wow, that's unreal. That's crazy. Honestly, I thought he was going to the Browns. HBO Hard Knocks had me really going, and I thought Des Bryant was going to make his way to the Browns.
He visited there, and he was like a very, very popular guy.
It looked great. It looked great. It looked like he was happy there. It looked like they were happy to have him there. But,
he dapped up everyone. He was going around saying hello to every single person.
I think a lot of the teams that were rumored for him to go to was along the lines of Cowboys. Obviously, he was coming from Dallas and their whole wide receiver issues at the start of the season, but they solved that with the pickup of Amari Cooper. But I know a lot of people were talking about the Browns, the Patriots before they got Josh Gordon. So to add a wide receiver alongside Michael Thomas now with Drew Brees averaging close to, I think he's either 78 or 79% of his throws are being completed, which is like unheard of. And if you look at the top 10 list of passing like completion percentage for quarterbacks, I'm pretty sure he holds like 5 or 6 of the top 10 records are just himself.
Not to mention they've won 7 straight.
Yeah, they're a problem.
They're on a tear, and they're only going to get better now with this acquisition. And Drew Brees just throwing his 500th touchdown last weekend. They're rolling.
And people are like, when does Drew Brees come into the conversation of if he's actually the GOAT or not? Or is it just always going to be Brady Rodgers at this, the current GOAT, obviously not counting the past QBs.
I feel like people sometimes forget about Drew Brees. And it's kind of like moves like this that kind of brings the viewers back to a guy like Drew Brees and reminds them of how good he actually is. Like, now people are seeing, wow, the Saints have won 7 straight. They're at the top of the division, and now they just got a top 10 receiver, or at one time was a top 10 receiver.
Well, if he could go back to his 2014 self, they'll be in good shape. I know he had a rough past couple seasons, and that's probably why he didn't get re-signed, and he was sitting on the couch for half the season so far. But no, it'll be fun to watch. They're high octane offense to begin with, so adding another weapon like that, it's going to take some pressure off Michael Thomas a little bit, and then the floodgates I can only expect to just be opened up at that point.
It's going to take a little bit of coverage off of Michael Thomas as well. I mean, that's a big move.
Definitely. So, Peach, what other topic did you want to bring up? I know you wanted to talk about Mahomes this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we just basically covered a team making moves in the NFC. Now, is it going to be the Patriots again coming out of the AFC, or does this young quarterback in Mahomes have what it takes to take this Kansas City Chiefs team to the Super Bowl? And all roads are going to lead to the Patriots in that AFC Championship.
I think that we're going to have another great rematch of Patriots Chiefs again, just like we did during the regular season. I think what did they score? 90 points between the two of them or something like that. It's like 40-something to 40-something. I don't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, but it's going to be a shootout no matter what. But that was also the Chiefs playing without 2 of their best defensive players.
Yeah, and Eric Berry and Houston, right?
Yeah.
And now they're back. So
once they're back, it's going to be a whole different type of atmosphere defensively for Kansas City. And we all know their offense can put up 30-plus points every week because they've pretty much done that since week 1.
Speaking of that, Mahomes, 8 straight weeks, 300-plus yards. He has 29 total touchdowns, and the record, what is it, the record in a single season, 50?
And I think Peyton Manning has it, right?
And he has 8 weeks left. What do you think of that?
Tito?
He's on track for it. Definitely
He's
on
definitely
track
on
for
track.
it. I mean, just the way he's been playing, the weapons on his team as well. I mean, that's another thing you got to look at. Tyreek Hill is just, I mean, he's wide open within 20 yards of the freaking end zone every time. Every time.
That's what happens when you're the fastest player in the league.
Fastest player.
Yeah.
He blows coverage every single time.
If you're that fast and you
Right
run
through.
great routes, you're like impossible to guard. At
Yeah,
that point.
and Mahomes has a cannon, so he's just finding them every time. And those plays, turn into touchdowns a lot of the time. So, I mean, I think he could do it without a doubt. As long as this kid keeps
he has the
producing.
recipe for the
I
perfect
mean-
recipe right now with the weapons that he has offensively.
Yeah, I think
Because
they
you can't
played-
guard everybody on the team. They have 5 different options they could go to.
And it's
Now
not,
the
kill you.
ultimate question though: can he take down Brady?
I want
who have
to.
they
I really
played
want him
already?
to.
They've
They've
had
already
their fair
had
share of
good
opponents.
competition. Yeah.
They've had their fair share of opponents.
So one thing is, I don't think it's been like some fluke of a start of a season for them. I think
No shot.
extending through, he can still produce those touchdowns and probably break that record. And you know what? If they're rolling the same way that a team like the Patriots or, like Kansas City at the moment and like the LA Rams at the time, also, just even though who just got defeated by the Saints,
Right.
they're all rolling. And if they can continue to roll, these playoffs could be real fun. Real fun.
I think if I had to make a bold statement, I'd say this is probably the most competitive and fun to watch the NFL is right now. I don't know if that's just because I'm doing fantasy again this season and I'm a little more engaged in it, but it feels like almost every team can go out and beat everybody. You know what I mean? It's never like a given. Except for those like few teams, everybody seems to be pretty evenly matched looking at the conferences and the records and stuff like that.
And trades are being made, and they're not like absurd trades, but they are trades that make an impact on the league as a whole. Because now you're seeing these teams pick up these wide receivers, these cornerbacks, these running backs who maybe have had a few years off but can still play. So it's just interesting to see where this league is going and what the future holds for this season alone.
Because the free agency moves this year were kind of reminded me of how free agency in like the NBA works. Because, usually free agent or like the trade deadline free agency in the NBA, it really shakes up like the league because a lot of those really big moves happen. And I feel like that's what the NBA has been kind of the stigma they have is that big things are going to happen come trade deadline or in free agency, and like the league's always shaken up by it a little bit. And I think this is the first year really in recent history where I could say the free agent moves like were actually like substantial in the NFL this year. Demaryius Thomas going from Denver to the Texans after losing Will Fuller, I believe, right? Because he tore his ACL.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big move. They're getting a guy just as good now who's proven vet. And then the move Golden Tate from the Lions to the Eagles. That just makes the Eagles' offense now even more dangerous, creating room for Wentz and Alshon Jeffrey now to work a little bit, spread
Aguilar.
the field. Aguilar, they have Zach Ertz, who's probably top 3 tight ends in the game right now. So this is probably the most significant free agent and trade deadline I think the NFL's had in recent history, for sure.
I'm excited to see what the playoff has, and not to mention those AFC, NFC championship games are going to be definitely ones to watch.
Tito, I got to ask you.
Talk to me.
Because as a Giants fan, it was hard for me to watch some of the moves that they've made and who they got rid of and whatever else. So do you want to just give me some of your first thoughts at what's been going on so far this season?
All right. To be completely honest, I don't mind. I don't mind them at all. I know some people are upset with some of the moves, but I think this team needs to shake it up. They need to stir something up and get some wins, produce some like action. I feel like every game that we watch is somewhat anticlimactic in one way or another, if not 3-4 times a quarter. So I think, they have great weapons, and OBJ and Saquon Barkley especially, who are still making some moves and still putting up numbers for the Giants, but defensively they're weak. Offensive line is weak. Those two, both lines to be weak is just not a good recipe for a winning team.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was.
What do you think?
Because I've been watching obviously every week they've played, and it just hurts to watch. I always just say a little prayer before the game even starts. At least make it competitive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
As someone who's not a fan of the team, I mean, I think they at this point you've given Eli enough chances.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah,
I think honestly, you keep Odell, you keep Saquon, maybe Landon Collins, and kind of the rest. The rest is up in the air. You gotta get some fresh new faces in there, and just kind of change the entire culture back to what it was.
Football has this, I would call it a stigma, but it's sort of a really, quarterback is a really important role. That's
right.
what I'm getting at here. And it's sort of like if you are building a team around a quarterback, and for years and years and years, Eli Manning has been that quarterback, and they have gone through great teams. They've had great weapons, going back into like Tiki Barber days with Eli, Jeremy Shockey, Bradshaw, Brandon Jacobs,
Plaxico, Hakeem Nicks,
Burris,
Victor Cruz in his prime.
Yeah. And, leading up to now, OBJ, Ty Ingram, and, he has some pretty good weapons, but it's just not there. The game is changing. Eli is not fast enough. But you know what? At the same time, I don't want to throw it all on Eli. I do not, because the offensive line needs to do their job as well. Everyone, it's a team thing. Not one person is for the whole problem right here.
But the crazy part is
at the moment.
Eli right now this season is having one of his best seasons statistically ever. And if I were to tell somebody who doesn't watch the games that information, they'd be like, or just show him the stats rather, if he didn't watch the games, be like, wow, this guy's top 5 QB in the league right now. It's the eye test that he's failing, but on paper he looks like he's doing great. 73 to 75 pass completion percentage. I think he only has 3 or 4 picks to, or maybe even less than that, honestly, and then 10 or more touchdowns. So the ratio is good, but it's the eye test that he's failing. It's the decision making. It's like, and rightfully so, he's panicking, and you could see it in his face. He always has some kind of weird face on because that's just Eli's face. But
I also feel like that panic is coming from kind of having guys in his face every
absolutely
5 seconds, because
absolutely
there's times where he maybe has a second to even make a decision.
Yeah, barely.
He has defenders in his face at all times, which, I mean, that puts a toll on you. And I think at this point, it's kind of almost becoming the wraps for Eli and the Giants.
Well, get that offensive lineup and then see what happens from there. Because to be quite honest, like you said, Kaz, I mean, that amazed me. It did, and I want to see Eli do well. I want to see him go out sort of the same way his brother went out. He has 2 Super Bowls from what I've seen. And he's a pretty good quarterback. I don't think he was a bust at all. I don't think he was a bad quarterback.
No, I mean,
as long
there's so many things I could say.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try and say as much as I can in a short period of time, and then we'll go to break real quick and come back and move on. But I just think he's hurting his legacy right now. Kinda.
I agree.
That's the vibe I'm getting, is because for the longest time, he was first ballot Hall of Famer, especially with those 2 Super Bowl rings and the numbers that he had, and 2 Super Bowl MVPs on top of that. So it was like, everyone was like, no doubt, he's a Hall of Famer first ballot. And now it's like, past 4 years, he's really just fallen off. We had that 1 year, two seasons ago, where we made the wild card game, and we were like 10-6 or 11-5 or something like that, playing Green Bay, and we ended up getting scraped by Green Bay in that wild card game, which sucked. But from that point on, that was the only glimpse of hope that we've seen from Eli, really, in a season. And he's hurting his legacy in the sense that now people are questioning whether he should even be a Hall of Famer at all. Yeah, because they're seeing all this like negative stuff going on with the line, and that attributes to that as well. But
do you?
Do I think he's a Hall of Famer?
Both of you.
I think without a doubt he's a Hall of Famer.
I think he's a Hall of Famer.
But I think he's going to ruin his chances if he doesn't. If this isn't his last year and he doesn't retire or take a back seat, he could stay in the Giants, be a backup, but take a back seat. It's tarnishing it.
There have been players in the NFL and in all sports, as well as quarterbacks, that have been in the league maybe a couple years too many. Right?
Yeah.
So we could end it on that note, but I would definitely say there's been some quarterbacks in the league for too long, and that legacy can fade over time.
The Giants are going through the rebuild phase right now. They're cleaning house. They had a fire sale. They got rid of Snacks on defense. They got rid of Eli Apple. They're talking about getting rid of Janoris Jenkins. Their staples of their team are going to be Landon Collins on defense, which they're talking about franchise tagging him now, and then Saquon and OBJ, and then it's going from there. So everybody's up for sale at this point is what I heard.
Yeah.
So expect really nobody to come back aside from maybe those 3 guys, and then even come Monday Night Football, we don't even know who's going to be the starter necessarily.
No, I
if
think
it's going to be Eli.
Eli is starting Monday.
So
all right.
Every week, Shermer's said that Eli's going to start. And then this last week when they were in the press conference, he wasn't sure. So now that he's starting, that means come next week, we don't even know. So we'll get more into it because I know I have a lot more to say, and then we'll move on to some other topics after this break. So we'll see you guys in a few. Welcome back, everybody.
We're back
to the RPMC
What
podcast.
What up?
Episode number 1, alongside the same hosts, Mike and Peach. And moving on from the NFL talk, let's get into college basketball. It's back. First games were yesterday, and we watched. They had 2 pairs of really, really good games to start off the season.
Kansas, Michigan State, Duke,
Right.
Kentucky.
And
1
Kansas,
versus
Michigan
10.
State, I think, was 5 points separated them. And then we watched Duke. We watched the whole game of Duke and Kentucky last night, and obviously they had a lot of hype going into the season, but they lived up to it last night. It was a thrill to watch.
They lived
honestly.
up to it extremely.
Yeah.
They almost 40-pieced them.
They showed why they were the number 1, 2, and yes, 3 recruits in this upcoming draft, and that was an unbelievable performance.
So now, because they were preseason ranked at number 4, do you think after last night's performance they get bumped up to 1 after that?
Power rankings extreme.
I don't
Or
think
2
you
at
could
least.
so much bump them up that quickly just because it's the first game of the season, and I mean,
every other time I would agree with you, but they played Kentucky in the first game and they won by 34 points.
Kentucky's my squad too, by the way. Don't get that twisted. I love Kentucky, and I was just excited. I was excited to see this Duke team go off. I wish they were all Kentucky.
It's going to be tough to put them to number 1 just because Kansas won as well. So it's not like
you would figure 2 then, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think they move up to that number 2 spot just because of that win last night. But I think it's a little too much for them to jump to that number 1 spot.
I think they were being
Kansas really didn't do anything wrong. They won their game.
Yeah.
And
I think they were being a little cautious with the number 4 ranking. They didn't want to give them anything higher because they lost. They don't have one returning starter, Duke, and they had all freshmen coming in, so they didn't want to give them such high expectations. So they're like, "Oh, I think 4 is fair," and then they go out and they did what they did last night, and I think they got to kind of reevaluate the rankings a little bit.
That was crazy. That was crazy. I mean, did you just some of those plays they look like they were playing in the wrong league?
Yeah. These are These are 3 one and done guys. They won't be here.
Yeah, there's no shot they stay.
Which sucks.
I was thinking about that when you guys were just talking about that. Like, if you were one of these 3 players and that opportunity comes up at the end of the season, like, and you're like, I'm ready, and everyone around you thinks, this is the time you're ready. Are you going? I'm going. I think 100%. Like, I'm going. When you have the time, I think you should go.
I think if you're at that point where everyone's kind of pushing you to when you know that your dream come true is about to happen, I think when you're in that moment, yes, obviously, I think majority of people would take that opportunity and just kind of jump right into it. But you got to live in the moment now. Like these kids are about to have probably one of the greatest years of basketball they've probably ever had. The fans, like everyone, just
the coverage,
the amount of coverage they get. There's media. There's media at every single
like the LA
thing
Lakers
that they have.
Yeah,
every single thing that they have, there's gonna be media at.
Yeah,
everything's covered.
Well, what if now you don't win a national championship? You somehow don't win a national championship with this team, because we've seen teams that have been dominant and dominant for years be taken down in the championship by teams that are better.
I mean,
teams that
literally
are
last
not
year,
as good, especially, March Madness is one game. It's a one and
called
done.
March Madness for a reason.
It's crazy, and we've seen way too many crazy things, and we're always looking forward for the next crazy season to come out. But I mean, something could happen, and then you don't win a national championship. I still agree with what you're saying, Peach, and I'm going. I'm 100% going. You get that opportunity, I'm out. I don't think college basketball is the way it used to be with people who really wanted to stay. And, Coach K is like,
the guru,
the guy who wrote the book for staying, for winning national championships, all right? And, like, yeah, a couple more years of advancement and working out and, getting your speed up could work. But, if you're that good,
You're also developing. You're working on all those things when you get to the NBA, regardless.
Oh yeah, you're getting taught by the best.
And if they really want to be great, they have to have that sort of work ethic, and they have to really know that they are ready for that commitment to perform at that high of a level and be successful.
Ideally, at the end of the season, it's going to be all 3 of these kids' choices. Like, it's not a question of whether or not they're going to be approach or have the ability to go into the NBA after the season. It's when and if they choose to. That's the question.
Yeah,
not are they going to.
They could have went out of high school.
Right.
All 3.
And they probably would have if the rule that you had to go to college for at least a year wasn't in play. They'd probably already be playing right now. But I think a lot of it comes down to the money financially. People see these players see these big checks, all the zeros, and they get mesmerized by it, rightfully so.
Yeah.
Especially because a lot of these kids, they don't see this kind of money growing up. And when they see that and they know all the people that can help, their parents, their grandparents, their friends and stuff that have helped them along the way, and they know they could help them out and sort them out, I think that's what really causes a lot of people to just make the jump right into the NBA and not stay regardless of how good their college team is.
Yeah.
Because they just want to do right by everybody else and make a living right away.
Yeah, I mean, I like that move.
But it has a lot to do also with their fear of injury.
Yeah.
Because
I think that's the
God forbid,
factor.
yeah, for sure, because God forbid they stay. They could be the number 1 pick, but they want to stay. They want to win a couple more chips or something like that. They stay and they tear their ACL or something.
Or
and they're
like
not
we
the
saw
same
with Michael
player.
Porter.
Right, exactly.
Michael Porter Jr., who just got drafted.
Yeah.
His draft stock went way down when he got injured at Missouri.
Yeah. And then that can affect that first part that was also affecting their decision. Yeah. So
there's a lot that goes into that discussion.
Yeah.
And, all these teams, whether it's Virginia, Villanova, North Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, Michigan State, Kansas, whatever, the list goes on.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun year of college basketball. It always is. But when we come back, we're going to inform you on the new college football rankings and the first look at the college football playoffs when we come back.
Yep. Welcome back, everybody. Now it's time to dive into college football and the rankings that just recently came out last night. Our thoughts, whether we disagreed or agree with them. So the top 6 right now: Alabama at number 1, Clemson number 2, Fighting Irish Notre Dame number 3, Michigan at 4, Georgia at 5, and Oklahoma at 6. Boys, is there any team that you think should be swapped? Should be another team placed into that top 6, or vice versa?
I think the way that the top 6 is laid out now has kind of been what has kind of laid itself out in the college football season so far. I think all those teams have earned their spot, and it's like it takes one game, and like everyone says, next week could be the week where everything changes. The whole top 6 is different, so it's going to be a fun finale to the season, and good luck to the rest of the teams along the way.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, I think it's right. I mean, let me tell you something. I'd love to see LSU at least in that 6th spot, but I mean, after what happened to them this past weekend, it can't be. They can't be. I mean, for them to be 7, I understand for sure. They're definitely better teams than everyone else on the rest of that list, but I mean, they got murdered.
I think it's tough to really argue that anything else should be different with the top 6 right now.
No, I think it's pretty good.
The only only teams rather that I think could be flip-flopped is Michigan and Georgia for that 4 spot. But both teams have really proven themselves, so it's tough to change it up. The only way it changes is if something dramatic happens for the next couple of games going forward, but that's really all I have in mind at this point regarding the rankings.
I feel as if this is the way it had to be laid out. Kind of obviously a couple teams could flip-flop here and there, but these are the top teams in the league at the moment, and going forward, only 4 of them move on, so it should be a fun finale.
Yep. Yeah. And rounding out that top 10, we have LSU at 7, Washington State at 8, West Virginia at 9, and Ohio State at 10. So we'll see if any of those guys make the climb towards the end of the season,
or someone from far out makes a giant jump somewhere along the way.
They need a lot of variables to go their way and a lot of things to go right for them and wrong for these other top teams, but which I don't see happening. But for right now, those are the top 6 and the top 4 that are in. And we'll keep you updated as the season progresses and as college football playoffs comes into play. So
we're going to take a quick break. Here's a message from our sponsors.
Well, that's all we got for college football rankings. We'll keep you updated as the season moves forward. Any changes going forward with that, as well as this is also be the conclusion to episode number 1 of the RPMC podcast.
Episode 1, baby.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
We're going to try and keep it weekly or bi-weekly, depending on how we can get here and get together. We do live in different places, so
we'll figure it out. We'll make it work. We always do.
We'll get it together, and we'll get a couple more podcasts out to you guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.